Welcome to the podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Lizzie.
This is Harry Potter and the First Time Readers.
Second time.
Second time reader. By the end of this podcast, I'll remember that. And then by the end of this podcast, we'll transition to reading something else and we'll both be first time readers for that. So I'm really going to screw it up. It's like when you get the year right for like an entire 9 months and then all of a sudden
it changes
and you got to...
Changes when you least expect it.
I know.
It really comes out of nowhere.
Okay, we're going to start on chapter 21. I believe that's where we finished. And we're going to do just a few chapters this pod, but chapter 21 is the Eye of the Snake. And do you remember this chapter?
No.
I'll give you good ones too. This one is actually kind of interesting and intense because Harry has there's like a bunch of random stuff that comes after or before this, but it's about to be Christmas. Harry kind of sees Thestrals. He's kicked off the Quidditch team, so they have a conversation about that. But at the end of this chapter, he has a dream, and he dreams that he is in this snake's, like looking through the snake's eyes, and he attacks Mr. Weasley, and he wakes up in a sweat. And they run up to the headmaster, and I think that's how the chapter ends. I finally don't have to keep living under this burden of me spoiling what Thestrals were. What do you think of Thestrals?
I think they're cool.
Yeah.
I love the idea of there being like creatures that are out there, but you can't see them.
Yeah.
Because now I'm just wondering, where else are there creatures everywhere? Like even them just flying above the forest, I'm like, people can see that all the time and just don't talk about it, I guess. Or I don't know, people don't.
It has to be funky too if you just don't know what Thestrals are, and then you're a kid and all of a sudden you see these like creatures just jumping over the forest, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that creature. And you probably think you're going crazy because none of your other friends can see it, and then you're like, what the heck's going on? Imagine
like not knowing what it was and then seeing it and then processing death, but then learning about it like 10 years later and be like, oh, like that is what I saw. Like it was there all the time. I just didn't know it. Because like cool. You think you only see it once.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know.
That is really cool, actually. I love the idea of them too, because there's like something deeper that people who have seen death can experience. I think they're like one of my favorite magical creatures for that reason. I love it. I think the representation that they have of being weird and like no one really wants to approach them because they're just different. I love that idea too. And I love that Luna just isn't afraid of them. Like she explains what they are. There's like, and we'll talk about this with the movie too. There's like a scene with the movie where I really love that they gave to Luna. Because she just seems like the kind of person that's like, has no fear of these creatures. Just love Luna. Love Luna, and I love Thestrals.
And she can see them, right?
Yeah.
Because, do we know why?
Mm-hmm. I think we know why at this point. I think we know why.
Is it her mom died?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, her mom died. Her mom liked to experiment with spells, and one went terribly wrong, and she ended up passing away.
What?
So
that's awful.
I know, seriously. And it's awful that it happened in front of Luna too. That's like really tragic and sad.
Does Luna have siblings?
Nope. It's just her and her dad now.
Yikes.
I know.
That's awful.
I know.
Or I don't know. Maybe they're having a good time.
You never know.
Who am I to say? Yeah. Maybe the mom was terrible.
Yeah. It was good. She was an abusive mother. And she died from
maybe
this.
Maybe she like flashed back her own like jinx at herself.
Ooh, I like it. New headcanon.
Justice for Luna.
That's actually an interesting thing of what Luna's mom is like. I imagine, because her dad is really interesting and quirky, and she's really interesting and quirky. I'm sure she was like just an oddball of a lady, but just like a lovely person. But I never thought about her being like a terrible mom. But Luna does have fond memories of her, and she's very tragic that this happened. So I'm sure, unless Luna's just like uncharacteristically kind toward everyone, which she really is. I don't know. That's an interesting headcanon. Interesting theory right there.
I have a crazy question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you like abracadabra yourself and die? I know it's not abracadabra, whatever it is. Can you do that to yourself? Like, or is that like the power can't go out the wand and back at the wizard?
I think you can.
It seems like I would
I don't
want
know.
the magic to just like glitch and that not be possible.
I mean, it's a really interesting question of, can your wand do magic at you? Have you ever seen a wand do magic to its owner that wasn't broken? Because Ron's wand screwed up. And remember when Lockhart obliviated Ron, or tried to, it backfired and he got obliviated. But I don't know if we've ever seen someone like use a spell against themselves.
Because it always goes like off a wall and bounces back onto you. It's like an accident.
Yeah. But I mean, people do use spells on them, like
that girl with her acne.
Yeah. So you can do certain spells on you. That's a great reference. So I love that you pulled that out of nowhere.
As I was like, oh, I would totally try that
too. There's got to be some like plant remedies for that. Yeah, I think you'd be in like the in the herbology greenhouses trying to come up with plant remedies for these things. That's why I love Neville.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could though. I wonder. Actually, I'm curious about that. Like in our culture, I think murder is like the worst of crimes. And I'm sure. I think in Jewish culture, it's like suicide is the worst of crimes. So I'm curious what if there's like a different spell for that she just hasn't included because she just doesn't want to. That's actually a fascinating question. I don't know if that's ever been there. I don't know. You ask good questions. You think Ginny is going to be good at Quidditch?
Yeah.
I think we already seen her play Quidditch, right? Not in these, but in the chapters that you read, because you read it a little bit further ahead.
Oh yeah.
So we already know she's good at Quidditch.
I mean, if you grow up with brothers, you're gonna be good at whatever their sport is, because they're gonna go against you. You gotta own up to it, I guess. She's feisty.
Did you guys go tubing?
Yeah.
Did you like always fight your brother and sister on that?
We would like crash into each other, and we would like grab each other's tubes, and then like we'd jump over and like switch.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like we were always pretty nice. I can't remember a time where like I just got obliterated by them.
I would go with my friends and we would we'd obliterate each other. Like if you're going over the wake, one of my friends, Trevor, would just be sitting there, side saddled on his tube, legs cocked back, and as soon as you came to him, he's kicking the tube as hard as he can, and sometimes he'd miss and hit you in the ribs. You feel like you broke ribs and you couldn't. We would just go ham on each other. It was fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, I loved it. I hated it, and then I learned to love it.
Yeah.
What do you think about Harry's dream? So you know that it's real. Why is he able to dream these kind of things?
I don't know. I'm confused, like, logistically what's happening. If he's controlling it or... I was just, like, confused about the snake, because I was like, is Voldemort the snake? Is he an animagus?
Voldemort the snake, okay.
Or... Then, the conclusion I came to, not really knowing what Horcruxes are, is that the snake is probably a Horcrux.
Okay.
Because if it has... It seems like it's Voldemort's being in the snake. Because if Harry has part of Voldemort and Harry's being the snake, it's like the third side of the triangle there is that, like, the snake is with Voldemort. So... I'm assuming that the snake has some Voldemort soul in it. And Dumbledore says something in his office. I don't know if that's this chapter or the next one, but he's like, in essence, divided.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is he talking about Voldemort's soul? And that clicks with him.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, I want to read that, because let's go on to the next chapter, which is where that happens, which is St. Mungo's Hospital. Oh, no. Yeah, St. Mungo's Hospital for Maladies and injuries. For magic maladies and injuries. And this is where that happens. And I want to read this for you when I can find it. Okay, this is it. The instrument tinkled into life at once with rhythmic clinking noises. Tiny puffs of pale green smoke issued from the minuscule silver tube at the top. Dumbledore watched the smoke closely, his brow furrowed. After a few seconds, the tiny puffs became steady streams of smoke that thickened and coiled in the air. A serpent's head grew out of the end of it, opening its mouth wide. Harry wondered whether the instrument was confirming his story. He looked eagerly at Dumbledore for a sign that he was right, but Dumbledore did not look up. Naturally, Dumbledore, murmured Dumbledore, apparently to himself, still observing the stream of smoke without the slightest sign of surprise. But in essence divided? Harry could make neither heads nor tails of this question. The smoke serpent, however, split itself instantly into two snakes, both coiling and undulating in the dark air. With a look of grim satisfaction, Dumbledore gave the instrument another gentle tap with his wand, and the clinking noise slowed and died, and the smoke serpents grew faint, became a formless haze, and vanished. What's going on?
I feel like Dumbledore knows what's going on.
Okay.
And that, because he's like waiting for Harry to have this dream. That's what it seems like. Because they say that later on somewhere that Dumbledore was like expecting this dream to happen. So I think Dumbledore knows what's happening.
Okay.
Once again, he's not telling us what's happening.
So it's even just more reason for you to hate Dumbledore.
Exactly. He's the worst. No, I don't hate him, but I'm just like frustrated by him.
I cannot wait till we get to some of the end parts of this to see what your opinion changes. I cannot wait. That's going to be one of the most fun, enjoyable things.
I think he should tell Harry what's going on, because how is he going to cope with this? And then later on, that's problematic when they're trying to do occlumency.
Yes.
And he's like if he knew why that was so important, I don't know why it's so important yet, but if Harry knew why it's so important, he would probably be motivated to do that. But it's kind of just this like, he has no explanation for things. It's just people telling him what to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, do you think that he can figure it out on his own? Like, why do you think that's important?
I mean, he should not be as stupid as he is, and he should just like listen. And yeah, like if Voldemort is possibly possessing you, learn how to block that out. But I don't understand how he keeps going further in his dream, because it's like, is that happening in real life where they're going to this like hallway 10 times and they're getting a little bit further each time? Mm-hmm. Or is Harry dreaming that up? Is he like lucid dreaming?
Yeah, for sure. So that's a good question. Are they lucid dreams, or is Voldemort controlling Harry and manipulating him to get further and further along in this thing? Because Voldemort needs to see this.
Oh, like Voldemort's not there? I thought Voldemort was at the end of the hallway.
Yeah, he could be. And he's manipulating him to get to the end of the hallway. Maybe like Voldemort's in prison there or something like that, and he needs to get out. And Harry needs to be the one that does it or something. I don't know.
I don't know. But why would he have the snake and not just have Harry?
Yeah. What are they guarding there?
The weapon.
Okay.
I think I should know what this is by now. I feel like I had a thought of what was there. I know I don't know. I feel very stupid reading this book. Like I can't, like the dots are all there and I just can't connect them. And even like you having explained occlumency to me like many podcasts ago, I was like, why did I never like think to just double back on that, and maybe like that comes in later? I was like, oh, so cool. Never thought about it again. Whole chapter about it. Whatever. I'm gonna start paying attention and listening to you.
No, this is good. Your read is great. Come on. You have whatever you focus on whatever questions that you want to focus on. Don't focus on me gaslighting or telling you blatantly what the story is about in a side way. Yeah, Dumbledore, it seems a little strange in this, but Dumbledore is also very intense. Do you think that he's in control of the situation?
I don't think he's in control. I think he knows what is happening and he knows what he needs to do.
Okay.
But I think it's probably like an equal battle between like a race to whatever's behind the door.
Okay. And they in your reading, they haven't got past this door yet.
I don't remember.
No, I don't think they have. I think
the door opens and there's a bunch of like circles on shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
That's it.
Okay. Interesting.
The foggy memory is there from the first time. I remember this for sure.
All right.
But I don't know.
You still don't remember? Okay. Great.
Because I think Hermione and Ron get there too, but I don't know. That's later.
So there's another moment when they kind of have to wait. So with the St. Mungo's thing, they're like, the Weasleys are kind of gathered up, and we have this line. So that if Harry had ever sat through a longer night than this one, he could not remember it. Sirius suggested once without any real conviction that they all go to bed, but the Weasleys' looks of disgust were enough answer. They mostly sat in silence around the table, watching the candle wick sink lower and lower into liquid wax, occasionally raising a bottle to their lips, speaking only to check the time, to wonder aloud what was happening, and to reassure each other that if there was bad news, they would know straight away, for Mrs. Weasley must long since have arrived at St. Mungo's. And then there's also this moment that happens before this, where they're having a debate between Sirius is talking to the Weasleys, and the Weasleys are like, we're going, and Sirius is like, no, you need to like think through this. You're not. Whose side are you on?
Sirius.
Okay. So they need to legitimately think through this and not go.
Yeah.
Respect.
Because his points are valid that you can't know he's there before the public knows he's there.
For sure. Hey.
And I think like I know the situation is serious, but I also not serious. But like I feel like he's gonna make it out and be fine.
Okay.
And if he's not gonna die, then you can wait. So,
yeah, for sure.
I know it's your dad, but
there's a larger mission at hand.
Yeah.
You need to work out things for the greater good or something like that. Yeah. So after this, they do go to or they're like on their way to St. Mungo's, and they kind of like look through some of the floors. But one of the most important questions, I mean, I kind of just asked this, but what was Mr. Weasley doing in the Ministry that he got bitten by a snake?
I think he was guarding that door.
Okay, yeah. What's behind the door?
I don't know. Well, these like circular things on shelves.
What are those? If that's really it, what are those?
Like magic globes. What are those? Crystal balls.
Okay, just a bunch of crystal balls, a room lined with crystal balls.
Is it the same thing that Dumbledore had on his desk? That you just read that quote?
Maybe.
Yeah. It's that.
It's that?
Sure.
And we talked about this before, but what is the deal with Harry being possessed by this snake? Is he being possessed by Voldemort? Is he being possessed by the snake? We're going to talk about occlumency after this. But does Harry really need to learn this? Does Harry have enough information to put together why he needs to learn this? Like you're saying that if Harry just knew why he was learning this, but isn't it kind of self-explanatory why he's learning this?
Occlumency?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's self-explanatory, but I don't think he understands how important it is.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point.
Also, Dumbledore can't look at Harry.
Why? Does that make you hate Dumbledore more?
No, it actually makes me like him a little bit more because I feel like the previous like book where he wasn't looking at Harry and he was being dismissive, I can excuse that because maybe this would have happened. Like this whole Harry wants to bite Dumbledore. Like I'm like, would that have happened? Because in the trial, you asked me why isn't he looking at him, and I was like, oh, they just don't want to seem like they know each other.
Yep.
But I'm like, maybe this would have happened then, and I don't think Harry had snake dreams at that point. I don't know.
how about this passage? Because you're saying something really, really interesting about this that is like dead set in this one.
It happened in a fraction of a second.
Yes, I was literally, I just got to that.
Good.
Go ahead, read it.
Okay. It happened in a fraction of a second. In the infinitesimal pause before Dumbledore said 3, Harry looked up at him. They were very close together, and Dumbledore's clear blue gaze moved from the portkey to Harry's face. At once, Harry's scar burned white hot, as though the old wound had burst open again. The unbidden, unwanted, but terrifyingly strong. Unbidden, unwanted, but terrifyingly strong. There rose within Harry a hatred so powerful he felt for that instant that he would like nothing better than to strike, to bite, to sink his fangs into the man before him. 3. That's crazy.
All right, what do you think about that?
I don't know, because Harry's not dreaming, and now he's having this thought like fully conscious. So something in Dumbledore is bringing that out of Harry, I guess.
Is this why Dumbledore isn't looking at him?
Yeah, I think so.
So Dumbledore knows what's going on, but isn't communicating this to Harry, but is Dumbledore keeping himself safe?
Maybe Dumbledore had expected the eye contact thing to happen, but he needed the dream to happen first, so that's why he was like, oh, like this is actually what's happening. Like that locked it in because Harry hadn't had a dream yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Picking up what I'm putting down.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Because I'm not sure that Dumbledore knows what's going on.
Okay. But is Dumbledore right to keep his secrets? Because clearly in these chapters, Dumbledore is keeping something hidden from almost everyone. It seems. So,
I don't know. I respect his caution. However, I find it frustrating.
As a reader, you hate him.
He might be right for withholding all this information, but from my vantage point, I don't like it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, they do kind of like think through this and process this even in the next chapter, which is Christmas on the Closed Ward, which it's a depressing chapter, but I actually love this chapter so much. Yeah. It's one of my faves. And this is essentially just the chapter where they go and spend some time in St. Mungo's, but they also get a ton of information on why Neville is the way that he is, which is just such good writing. I cannot wait to talk about that. Yeah. And they see Lockhart as well, which is really fun.
Actually made me cry like instantly.
Really?
It was so strange. Just when they come up this stairwell and Lockhart's in the window.
Yeah.
I was just like, no. And that just like made me so sad to just see him in that state.
Yeah.
I think they should make that an unforgivable curse. Because that's so tragic that you have to like, or Lockhart is spending all his time.
He did it to himself.
I don't know.
And he's actually a fascinating character. A lot of people, I think he's a little bit more dangerous than people may give him credit to be.
Why?
Because look at what he was doing to other people. He was using other people just for their stories. A bunch of other people, witches and wizards, were doing these incredible things with these creatures. And he saw that and was envious and jealous of that. And so he wanted their stories and he wanted to become a famous writer, just a famous person. So he goes to these witches and wizards who are doing these incredible things. He obliviates them. He steals their memory and the knowledge, and then he obliviates them. And then he goes on gallivanting that he's really the one that's done this, while those other people aren't living in any memory of that. I mean, maybe it's like a mercy that he doesn't kill them, but still, it's like he just wipes their memory. And then he's going off getting credit for all this kind of stuff. It's like ghost-written novels. It's like a really weird ethical question for that. But I think he's pretty reprehensible for doing some of this stuff. I think he's really dangerous too.
Because he's obliviated, right?
Yeah, he's obliviated. So he got a piece of his own medicine.
But I don't think I thought that the people that he obliviated were gonna be in like a mental institution. I just thought it was like the memory is gone from your little like adventure, and you function normally.
It's actually an interesting question whether he would obliviate them to the point that they'd be in a mental institution versus maybe he obliviates them and gives them a great life, and he just steals their stories. Maybe that's not quite as bad, but still, it's pretty terrible to take someone's memory, their like life's research.
So like Dumbledore should go to jail.
Why?
Because didn't Dumbledore obliviate him?
No.
Oh.
He obliviated himself.
Lockhart obliviated himself?
Remember he was using Ron's wand and it backfired on him? And he ended up hitting his head in the cave, which like a concussion and an obliviating charm. He was going down to the Chamber of Secrets to find the beast and take it on, really because Ron and Harry like cornered him. And then he snuck Ron's wand. And then said, like, you know, it ends here. He was going to tell the whole story about that, how he was so close to defeating it. He was going to tell another like novel, and then he obliviates them. But Ron's wand was broke. It backfired on him, and really did some damage to him because he hit his head as well. So it's double whammy: a concussion and obliviating charm.
Yeah,
that's why he's in St. Mungo's. He was going to do that to children too, which is a little bit rough.
Yeah,
I think he's a dark character, but I'm actually kind of with you. I think obliviating should be a unforgivable curse, but the Ministry uses it so much that they can't make it unforgivable, because there's literally a whole branch of the Ministry of Magic that is their sole purpose is obliviating people and modifying people's memories.
But I feel like the law does not always obey the law.
What do you mean by that?
Like the government is doing things that are not legal for sure.
Yeah.
So they should make it illegal for normal wizards, and then if you're a Ministry wizard, go ahead.
You're able to obliviate people if you're a Ministry wizard, but not if you're just a normal wizard. So are
like
you able to...
Unforgivable curses are allowed by Ministry.
So you believe in the death penalty?
Whoa, that's a long... No. I'm just saying if the Ministry could utilize it, go ahead, but then just make it illegal for everyone else. And then like you have your band of wizards that do the obliviating, and that's like their little SWAT team of obliviators. You're running into
the whole SWAT team. You're running into a whole heap of issues. You seem to have a like there's something about that. There's like a trust in government. Like you even don't I don't think you're like a I think you're even saying like the Ministry is very corrupt. So how can all this corrupt Ministry?
No, it would be terrible.
Uphold the ability to perform the unforgivable.
I'm saying on paper in a perfect world.
Okay. Idealistically, that makes sense. Pragmatically, no way.
Absolutely not.
I am with you though. I think obliviating should be an unforgivable curse. I also think the use of love potions should be unforgivable. It should give you a life sentence in Azkaban. I think that's reprehensible. Unless there's certain scenarios where it's okay, I think, but those are few and far between scenarios. I think, I can't. There's a section in the next book that we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. It's going to be great. Ron gives Hermione perfume for a Christmas gift in this chapter. What do you think about that?
It's a good gift.
Yeah.
If it smells good, it's a good one.
Yeah. A little love blossoming between the two.
I don't know. I feel like not yet.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Yeah.
But it's like they're an old married couple right now, and they have to like work in reverse, and then they have to fall in love. It's like they start.
That is actually a great analogy of them.
Yeah. So they're just like, bickering.
Yeah, they just fight and bicker, and
but they're like best friends and know everything about each other.
Yeah.
It just hasn't hit them.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Here is, I'm going to read a few of the most devastating lines in all of literature. But, what? Said Ron, looking amazed. Harry wanted to stamp on Ron's foot, but that sort of thing is much harder to bring off unnoticed when you're wearing jeans rather than robes. Is that your dad down at the inn, Neville? What it is, said Mrs. Longbottom sharply. Haven't you told any of your friends about your parents, Neville? Neville took a deep breath, looked up at the ceiling, and shook his head. Harry could not remember ever feeling sorrier for anyone. But he could not think of any way of helping Neville out of this situation. Well, it's nothing to be ashamed of, said Mrs. Longbottom angrily. You should be proud, Neville. Proud. They didn't give their health and their sanity so that their only son would be ashamed of them, you know. I'm not ashamed, said Neville, very faintly, still looking anywhere but at Harry and the others. Ron was now standing on tiptoes to look over the inhabitants of the two beds. And it has this later. Neville's mother had come edging down in the ward in her nightdress. She no longer had on the plump, happy-looking face Harry had seen in Moody's old photograph of the original Order of the Phoenix. Her face was thin and worn now. Her eyes seemed overlarge, and her hair, which had turned white, was wispy and dead-looking. She did not seem like she wanted to speak, or perhaps was not able to, but she made timid motions toward Neville, holding something in her outstretched hand. Again, said Mrs. Longbottom, sounding slightly weary. Very well, Alice, dear, very well. Neville, take it, whatever it is. But Neville had already stretched out his hand, into which his mother dropped an empty Drubel's Best blowing gum wrapper. Very nice, dear, said Neville's grandmother in a falsely cheery voice, patting his mother on the shoulder. But Neville quietly said, Thanks, Mom. His mother tottered away, back up the ward, humming to herself. Neville looked around at the others, his expression defiant, as though daring them to laugh. But Harry did not think he ever found anything less funny in his life. Well, we'd better get back, sighed Mrs. Longbottom, drawing on long green gloves. Very nice to have met you all. Neville, put that wrapper in the bin. She must have given you enough of them to paper your bedroom by now. But as I left, Harry was sure he saw Neville slip the sweet wrapper into his pocket. What are you thinking, Neville?
This is so tragic.
I know.
He is a soldier that nobody is acknowledging. Like, yes. He has to persevere and he's not ashamed of his parents, but the fact that like he chooses to just like keep it quiet and just kind of shoulder his burdens is tragic.
I know.
So sad.
There is something I get on a level for what Neville is dealing with that I have such respect for him, but it is so difficult, the situation that he's in. Like, there's something I love about people who just silently suffer through things. And yes, like, people that they love truly know, but like, Neville doesn't want to broadcast this, maybe because he hasn't processed through this thing enough, or he's just not ready to tell people yet. But there's even something like some of these like Chadwick Boseman is like a great example of this. How he had cancer and no one knew he had cancer, and then he just died, and people were like, "What? That's crazy." And for me, I'm like, that's the way to go. Like, I know it's sad and tragic, but I would do the same thing that Neville would do here. This isn't something that like you're outwardly sharing. It's not like, because like how do you share something like this with other people? That's what's going on in my head with Neville. Like, how do you tell other people this other than them like asking? Like, no one's asking Harry what happened, or no one's asking Neville what happened with his parents. So Neville just maybe doesn't have good enough friends at the moment to really be able to share any of this kind of stuff. So he just silently shoulders this, which is so tragic, even for what you said. So tragic, because maybe he really just doesn't have good enough friends, but he silently shoulders it. And I think, I don't know, this might sound really weird, but in a weird way, I think that actually makes him stronger. It makes him independent. And when he's actually able to get friends, I think it makes him a better friend.
Yeah, because he just might not have ever had a person to tell that he's trusted enough, which is also very sad.
It's so sad.
But most of the people in his parents' generation around this area would know. I think it's kind of just the kids not understanding and asking.
Which is another aspect that I really love too, because all the adults are quiet for him. It's like Neville is almost still silently mourning this. Like, all the adults in the Order of the Phoenix know what happened to Frank and Alice Longbottom, and none of them are telling what happened to any of the kids, almost because they know it's like the height of tragedy. Like, there's a point in this novel even still where I'm like, what happened to Frank and Alice was worse than what happened to James and Lily. Like, and what Neville has to endure on a daily basis I don't know if like I don't know if I really want to compare those two things because they're both pretty terrible and reprehensible. But Neville's battle is just different in a different and like a not necessarily more difficult way. It's just like in a different way. He's fighting the same battle that Harry's fighting. Because it's like this is like the analogy that you can give sometimes for this. It's like, would you rather be in a desert or would you rather be stranded on the ocean when you're like dying of thirst? Like there's all this water around you and you can't drink it, or would you rather be in a desert where there's just no water at all? It's like Harry doesn't have parents. He's like in the desert. Neville's like, he has parents, but he doesn't have parents at the same time. His parents are right there next to him, but they're gone.
I wish Mrs. Weasley kind of adopted him the same way she did for Harry.
Yeah. I don't know if Mrs. Weasley thinks it's her place to do that again, because this is such a strange scenario. He does have someone who's his guardian, and his parents still are alive. So it's it's like different for Neville. Like, yes, he should still be adopted by like, someone who's truly loving and caring. But we're going to talk about some other Neville lines later. But my favorite headcanon of all time comes from this section too.
How old was Neville when his parents died? Was he also a baby?
Well, his parents didn't die.
Oh.
I know, and his parents were driven into insanity. He was probably a little bit older than Harry when Harry's parents died. So it's like Voldemort got banished, and then like maybe like a few months after, Voldemort's followers were still doing reprehensible things, and they just went over to the Longbottoms and tortured the Longbottoms into insanity.
So he never had like the parental figures.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Mrs. Weasley should have done that.
I know.
But I love how he's like kind of like try me at the end where he's like daring them to laugh. Like it makes me feel like he's got burned before for saying something, or he's gotten bullied, or somebody, I don't know, something happened.
There's I'm with you. The defiance that he has is a beautiful thing. Like everything about Neville in this whole section just makes me love him so much. Like he's one of those characters, he just pops up here and there, and then all of a sudden you get this line about him. And every action that Neville does, I don't know why, but every action that he does is something that I would have done too. Like I'm not a hoarder. I'm very much a minimalist. But if my mother, who's driven into insanity, gives me a gum wrapper, I'm pocketing that, and I'm keeping that forever. And Neville doing that, and then when he pockets it, and when he looks at the gang with an air of defiance, you can tell at that moment how proud he is of his parents, and how like furious Neville is for the things that happened to them, to the point where behind Neville's eyes right now, he's still a coward, but he is the strongest. He is one of the strongest characters in the entire story. And I love it so much.
Yeah. He's probably so hyped to be able to be in Dumbledore's army.
Yeah.
And just have the space to actually thrive and learn the spells and do well. Because he keeps getting destroyed in class. Like none of his classes go very well for him except herbology.
Yep.
But I feel like he probably has such like a vengeance in him that just needs to be let out.
Yeah.
He would probably be awesome in like the second generation of the Order of the Phoenix.
Like again, revenge is like, you never want to just do something out of revenge. Revenge will eat you alive more than it'll eat the other person alive. And there's all sorts of stories that you get about revenge. But with Neville, it's not necessarily even about revenge. It's like, what is he it's like, I just love the word defiance. He's defiant in the face of what happened. And if you could do that, it just speaks to how strong of a person you are. And I can dote on Neville for like months and months and months about this, but the strength that resides within this person is something that I want to emulate in my life. Like how actually strong he is. Like Harry, Ron, and Hermione are strong in different ways. Like Harry's very strong because he's resilient. Neville's strong because he's defiant. Like he has a constant reminder of the evil that happened to him, and he is still choosing every day to be defiant against evil in spite of what happened. And he's like, even he's in this group, and he's like, what his motives are. And it changes your whole reading of him. Like when he's in the DA, you know why he's training. It's like a Rocky montage. He's like doing this, and he's like, he's got like these pictures of these people that tortured his parents on his mirror, and he's like, and he's like crossing off the days till he gets there. It's like, I just love it so much.
My only other thought on this is that it could have been a moment where the trio kind of isolates themselves from him, and like they could have been like, oh, we'll be all like exclusive and cliquey and laugh at you. And they're all just like, nope, that's not how we're going to take this. Yeah. And then it just goes back into the DA and I feel like it kind of tightens the bond almost.
Yes.
Because they all don't speak about it. It's just like, we saw it. We don't talk about it. That's your business.
Yeah.
Respect that. That's it. But I feel like their bond after is different too.
Yes.
Just knowing. And even knowing that it was Bellatrix that did it too. Because that was added information for Ron and Hermione that they didn't know.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. Yeah, it is a testament even just to their maturity to not talk about this. Like there's certain things that like even as a kid, you know, you can't talk about this kind of stuff. And that's one of them. But it does show their maturity as well. I just want to ask a question to chat before I ask you, because it might be a spoiler for something later. Yeah, I could talk about Neville for months. I think he's one of my. I think he's my favorite character in this whole story, and I like whenever he pops up, I'll keep on going on rants on why. But this is one of my favorite sections of all time, and I will talk about this till the day that I die. Oh my gosh.
He's definitely not like one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, for sure.
But he's an awesome character.
Yeah, I love that. Respect that. The next chapter that we have is Occlumency, which there's a lot of interesting things in this chapter, but what do you just think about the whole idea of occlumency and legilimency?
You prepared me for this and I missed. I was like, oh, duh. Like, I should have thought of this. I don't know. I was disappointed in myself. But occlumency is crazy. So occlumency is the blocking out of thoughts. And then what's the going into the thoughts?
Legilimency. So every time you like have to make eye contact for legilimency?
Because then
it seems like it.
Then I was doubting every time in the first two books when Dumbledore was making very intense eye contact and is like this all-knowing character. I was like, is he just like legilimencying Harry and that's why he knows everything?
Great question.
And I don't know. I don't think so, because I feel like you'd have to say like a spell, right? Because Snape always says, okay, maybe not.
Nope, you don't.
So is Dumbledore just like reading Harry's mind the whole beginning of this series? Because is that not a thing? Like he always mentions his eye contact in the beginning.
It does.
So
a lot of people have reread the first few chapters and they think that Dumbledore is performing legilimency on Harry in some of those moments when he makes eye contact with him. There's a lot of debate about that with whether he does or not. It's a fantastic question.
I think he would.
He
doesn't respect privacy.
He would. What a sucker.
But yeah, this chapter is Snape. Obviously, a lot going on. I don't know. It makes me trust Snape a little more because he's in the Order. But then I have this huge like underlying thought that he's weakening Harry, and I don't know if he is. But
it was just confirmed to me on chat, and I want to talk about this for two minutes before we go on to the what later on the occlumency stuff in here. But there is this one moment with Neville that I love in the previous book when Harry jumps into the Pensive and sees all these memories about this courtroom, and then he learns who Neville's parents' torturers are. Which are Bellatrix Lestrange, Barty Crouch, and these two other people. We might meet them later, but these two other people who are on trial. And then at the end, Harry asks Dumbledore, like when they're out of the memory, like, were those Neville's parents that they were talking about? Dumbledore says, like, yes, but Neville needs to say this on his own terms. Like, you cannot bring this up with Neville. Like, he needs to be the one that speaks this and brings this up on his own terms. And for some reason, I love this idea that everyone in the series knows that this is Neville's. They give Neville the respect to be able to deal with this on his own. And I feel like that's rarely done with people. Like if someone's going through a great deal of suffering, generally it's almost like the sufferer's burden to like comfort other people through what they're going through. Like I've said this with when I like had to deal with like a small little bout of cancer. When I had it, my main responsibility was comforting other people who had tons of questions about it, rather than like just, you know, worrying about myself or like fixing myself or like figuring it out myself. It was like other people would come to me in like tears and be like, oh, you know, why is this happening? I'd be like, well, like, let's sit down and like talk about why this is happening. And it was exhausting. But for some reason with what Neville's going through, they're giving him the respect and the privacy. And I'm like, the amount of respect that's there for Neville is just something that I think should happen more often with what people are going through in small little minute moments. I love that they give him the respect to be able to deal with this in the way that he needs to deal with it and to be able to tell people when he wants to tell people. Love everyone in this book that does that. I love that they all just generally respect it.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to more occlumency stuff.
No, I love that. It's like, it's strengthening to the person that's trying to go through it if they really want to do it alone, because then you're wasting energy trying to console other people's like
exactly
bad feelings.
Yes.
And that's something you always say about grief is like the best thing you can do sometimes for a grieving person is like literally just sit with them.
Yeah.
And like
just shut up. Don't say a word.
Just exist with them and just be there. And I feel like it just saves, like, you don't want to guilt trip the person. Like, you have no control over your medical, whatever's happening, you know? And now, like 15 people are coming to you crying that they're going to miss you so much. It's like, it's
exhausting.
Yeah, that's
Can't deal with that. Don't have the bandwidth for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
good, Lizzie. Okay. What is in the
like a hard left?
What did Sirius gift Harry that Harry didn't even open? He just threw it in his.
It's like a knife that opens the door.
No, well, he did gift him that, but then Harry has another gift that he gives him from.
Is it a book about the defense?
Nope.
Doesn't it like it opens doors?
We just don't. I mean,
key?
No. This is. It's not a quiz question. It's a conjecture question. What do you think?
What does it
so
even
mean? Harry. Snape gives him a gift and says, "When you need me, use this."
Snape gives him a gift.
Sorry. Sirius gives him a gift.
Okay.
And Sirius says, "When you need this, just like use this, and I'll be there." And
it's
because
diary.
Maybe we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is.
And Harry doesn't want to use it because he doesn't want to put Sirius into any jeopardy or any danger. So he just takes it and just tosses it into his rucksack, not even thinking about what it is. Buries it at the bottom because he doesn't even want to entertain the idea that Sirius would be in trouble for like helping Harry in any way. What is this object that Sirius gave him?
I'm picturing it like the Tom Riddle journal.
That's kind of good. Like a correspondence, he writes and then Sirius writes back.
And then it wouldn't endanger Sirius. But I'm surprised that Harry would do that, honestly. He's so stupid most of the time that I'm like, he's very protective of Sirius, but for him to be that forward thinking that maybe Sirius is not thinking through this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Would you rather want to learn legilimency or occlumency?
The one where I go into yours.
Interesting. Legilimency.
Yeah, that I would want.
There's when we do all the movies, there's the new movies that have been made, and there is one character who had kind of transformed the way people thought about legilimency, where she's almost a naturally gifted legilimens, and she like almost can't help but go into other people's minds. Like, it's not like she's necessarily even making eye contact. It's like when another person comes by, she just like is in their mind. And so
that's crazy.
Yeah, it changed it. It changed it from where it was like, I am doing a spell to invade your mind, to where it's like someone who's just extremely gifted in legilimency. They just walk around and they're like in people's minds.
So you're born with the gift.
There's a debate about that. It's like both and. You're born with, some people are born with the gift. Some people, you can foster the gift and become better at it. but it's somewhat a gift. It's somewhat something that's learned as well.
What would you want?
Probably acclimacy. I would have said legitimacy.
That's so on brand for you.
I think a few years ago I probably would have said legitimacy, but I don't necessarily want to know what's going on in people's minds anymore. I just want to shut my mind off to other people.
That's so true. Honestly, I do not care about other people's business. Like,
for
people
sure.
will come up to me and be like, "Can I tell you something?" Or like, "Do you want to know this?" I'm like, "No, actually, I don't." And I'll turn around and walk away. I don't care what's going on.
You don't care
tell
about
me.
the tea?
No, I'm better without it. But yeah,
that's great.
But at the same time, here I am choosing legitimacy.
Yeah, exactly. One of the last questions for this whole round of this podcast. Snape is hiding his memories.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're sad. I think there's probably more memories in there than the one that we saw. I thought he was gonna be hiding memories of like being with Voldemort, and he didn't want to like tap in. He didn't want Harry to tap into his brain, and then there'd just be him like worshiping Voldemort or something, you know? So I thought that was what's happening. But I definitely remembered like Snape getting bullied.
Mm-hmm.
That stayed in my like biography of him in my mind. Like part of his lore.
All right.
I knew that was there.
Well, you did read the chapter which we're going to get to in the next podcast, which is Snape's worst memory, which we're going to talk about at length for what his worst memory was. Do you have anything else on these chapters?
No.
All right.
I don't think so. Oh, I love these books.
I know, that's great. I'm actually curious. We'll talk about it maybe another time, but where this is ranking so far in your favorite.
I gotta go back to the Discord and see what I said. Because this is 5. Everybody in the Discord was like, "Oh, this one jumps up to their immediate favorite," and they were all like, "It's so like controversial though. Like we can't tell you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm beginning to understand." But
it's a tough book to get through.
Yeah, it's good though.
Yeah. We'll talk about that next time.
Well, thanks for joining us on our journey of Harry Potter and the Second Time Reader.
Bye.
See ya. Good, you didn't make me do my favorites of anything.
Oh shoot, I totally forgot about that.
I was just staring at you for so long. I was like, okay, I'll just take it. Just go.
That was in my mind too. I was like, okay, as soon as we're done with this, I gotta go to the favorites and then son of a gun. All right, anyway.